Hi, this will be my final recording for ECED 5354. It feels very bittersweet to say that. I have so enjoyed our time together, and I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for the opportunity to watch you grow and develop, even though many of us have never met, or talked or communicated in other ways besides email or reading your posts. Um, but I appreciate the time we've spent together. I appreciate your thoughtfulness, the insights, the vulnerability that you have shared. And excuse me, watching you change and evolve as early childhood professionals during our time together. I have submitted your grades. I finished reviewing your final projects. So thank you for sharing those with me. It was a pleasure reviewing your uh, or early childhood STEM personal statements, and I invite you to reflect back on those and look back in at week one and see what you wrote about early childhood STEM in our intro discussions. So you might want to take that journey. I did a little bit, and it was quite fascinating. People had very thoughtful, insightful connections to early childhood STEM as being part of our learning community. And I appreciate your growth and the well-developed ideas in regards to play and open-ended opportunities for investigation, exploration to foster and capture children's curiosity and problem solving and ability to explore and investigate. So those were key elements, and I appreciate people talked about creating a maker space and those elements. And then I looked at the books and the activities that people planned. So as I share my feedback, I invite you to think about how you can connect to the rich personal statements that you talked about to your actual work with young children. And sometimes that's hard to have these ideas of what early childhood STEM is and to put it in practice. I invited many people to think back to the balls or ramps. I think it was the balls investigation, the containers investigation, the three little pigs and engineering videos that we watched during our time together, and think about how your activities could be connected or aligned to or similar to those videos. STEM is everywhere. Some people talked about using the very hungry caterpillar, and my thought was like, you could order a butterfly garden. They sell these little mesh butterfly gardens that you can hatch a little larva in a cocoon. I think it might come as caterpillar. I don't even remember. And and then it goes into a cocoon and comes out a butterfly, and then you release it. That would be an amazing STEM opportunity. And books, a lot of people talked about Rosie Revere, engineer, Ada Twist, scientist. Clearly, those are STEM-oriented books, right? There are a lot of STEM-oriented books. But there are also great books like I Love You, Stinky Face, which is a board book. Goodnight Gorilla, another board book. And lots of other amazing board books. Just Us Women, I mentioned in several posts, which is a journey, a book about a journey between a child and her aunt. How can you find STEM activities in these everyday moments? Because STEM is everywhere. Opportunities for STEM are everywhere. So, how can we capitalize on all of those opportunities? And how can we make them rich, hands-on experiences where we're focusing on the process? of investigating and exploring and testing and that iterative design and figuring out what's wrong and being friends with failure and trying again, instead of thinking about a product, right? Thinking about that process, and not having an us as teachers, not having an end goal in mind, but letting children dive in and see where it takes us. Um, people had some very thoughtful books when you talked about tinkering with literacy. Clearly, using those books were not necessarily appropriate, but think about any book you read, and how could you connect STEM to it? Because just about every book you can connect to STEM in some way. STEM is all around us in everything we do with young children. So how can we capitalize on that and expand on it? Let it bloom. Speaking of blooming, lots of people did activities with plants. So instead of just planting those seeds, plant different seeds. Why does it have to be just one type? Plant different types and put the seeds in different places. Put some on the windowsill, put some outside, put some on a bookshelf that doesn't get much light. And then compare the different types of seeds. Which one grow faster? Which one, how do they grow? How do they look? How do the leaves look, right? Do some comparison, document, chart. This is exploration. This is investigation. And then what happens to the ones that are outside? What happens to the ones on the windowsill? What happens to the one on the bookshelf or the shelf that doesn't get direct sunlight? How are they similar? How are they different? Right? Open up to those questions, um, and um, and let things go where they go. Don't be afraid to be messy, and don't be afraid to let children run. And I don't mean physically run, let their imaginations run. And with that, let your imagination run. Be free. And I often say, ask questions I don't have an answer to. And I invite you to do the same with your own professional growth and in your work with children. So thank you again for a wonderful semester. I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. I hope our paths cross again. And thank you for this opportunity to get to know, work with, and learn from you. Because I learned from many of the posts that you submitted, your reflections, your insights, and of course, your projects. You had very thoughtful ideas. So I hope you have a great rest of the day. This isn't goodbye. This is until we see each other again. And thank you. Thank you. Be well.